We are indeed live. Welcome back to Let's Talk About with Lainie and Heather. We are back. I am actually on time for once in my life. And yes, we're both here. So if anyone wants to join in the chat, by all means pop in. We welcome all sorts of comments, preferably polite ones, actually. Let's just get that straight. We didn't have a set topic for this evening because we looked through the list and some of them were incredibly wide-ranging and probably a bit head-puzzling, and others were very specific. So we thought we'd start with one and see how it goes. Our subject for this evening is really about, is it okay to lie? Do we lie a lot? What do you count as a lie? What is really a lie and what isn't? What's a serious one? What the cause is and what are the consequences of lying, and how do you feel about it in general? Because I think there's going to be a lot of different opinions about what a lie actually is and whether we actually do micro lies a lot of the time for different reasons.
I think we do. Like, if someone asks my opinion of something, I try to give it honestly without being mean, if that makes sense. So, like,
Absolutely.
to me, if a friend of mine says, does this dress look okay? And maybe it doesn't suit her shape or whatever, I will try and put it across in a way that says, you know what I mean, that is nice. I won't just go, oh yeah, it's lovely, because to me, that's not being a friend. You know what I mean?
True. Absolutely.
If she then chooses to ignore that, that's up to her, you know. And that she likes it enough to bypass whether it suits her shape, in my opinion. Because I'm not saying I'm right. I might not be right, but it's just because it's just my opinion, isn't it?
Exactly. Maybe she loves it so much that actually she doesn't really care what other people think. But generally, people like to have someone go, "Oh yes, that looks quite good. Had you thought about putting it down this way or putting that with it?" Often it's putting a belt.
Putting a belt in it, or yeah.
So many people just kind of like want to cover everything and not show any shape because they think they're not the right shape, whatever that is. And a belt makes a massive difference. So I quite have fun trying to style people up if I get the chance. But honesty with mercy is probably the way to go. But sometimes I can be a little bit blunt without really meaning to. But yeah, try not to. Hello, Joe. Hello. Oh no, it's gone again. I've had brain fry all this week. It is Rebecca, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was nearly said Rachel. I thought, no, I've done that before and got it wrong. Hello, Rebecca, with apologies. See, I'm honest. At least I'm honest.
Yeah. I think the sort of micro lies that we tell, as in, like, I'm trying to think of something specific to say to that. Like, I'm trying to think. I know I can't. My mind's just gone blank on me, like, completely. But I'm sure we do loads and loads of, like, tiny lies, like, that are not really, you know what I mean?
And what really constitutes a lie? I mean, the number of times, and it's a very British thing, where someone's gone sorry when someone else has actually trodden on their foot, like the recipient of the hurt has said sorry. It's kind of weird because that's a kind of a lie. It's like, you're not sorry, you're actually expecting somebody else to say sorry.
Yeah.
The hidden messages in things which aren't exactly lies but convey so much. I think there's a lot more of it. I think it's a coping mechanism that we learn, and it's part of being socially, just fitting in socially. Sometimes is you end up having to say something, and it's kind of maybe not a lie in fact, but a lie perhaps by omission of the truth.
Yeah. I suppose it's like if you don't want to do something, but like your friend, like if your friend wants to go out or whatever, and then you sort of say, "Oh, I can't because," when really that isn't true. It's just
you don't want to.
You don't want to, but you know that they'll just hound you if you know what I mean, kind of thing.
the need to have to explain, which I think is often it's not always a good thing. So I can't do such and such because, and when I was working with people as a therapist, I would always say, you never have to explain.
Yeah.
And you don't have to apologise if you say, well, I can't make that evening. You don't have to say why.
You do feel obliged to have a reason, don't you? You really do. When really, like you said, you could just say, I can't make it, sorry, and that'd be it.
Yeah, or maybe another time. It's a mad week and it's really busy, and I'd like to make it another time, which is true without going to specifics. You don't always have to justify.
Sometimes you end up going, oh, I didn't sleep very well, and I don't feel quite 100%, and blah 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 blah, and you give all this, and I mean they might be true little bits, but I suppose you don't really have to say all that, do you?
Exactly. It's often difficult, and a lot of people I know have this, where they're invited along to something where perhaps it's a couple or a group of people, and they're very fond of one of the people, but the other people they're kind of like a bit like, not sure I really want to spend a whole evening. That could get a bit interesting. So it's a difficult one. It's like, how do you meet your own needs without hurting somebody else? And it's not always possible to do that. It just isn't. Hello, Chris.
Does it then come down to the level of what it is, so like if it was just a friends get together, as in nobody's like, it's not a birthday, it's not an anniversary or something like that, then does that make it easier? Whereas like if it included, like it was a birthday or an anniversary, you'd feel more obliged to actually do it, even if you didn't want to be around the other people.
Possibly, and it's that sort of decision-making process. But often people will catch you entirely on the hop, and this is where lying becomes, it's kind of like a default setting, and to have to make an excuse or to say something else. And kids learn to lie really young. I mean, I was so proud of my son when he told his first lie, because that showed me that he was actually developing, because it is an important social skill to be able to lie. The fact that I knew he was lying straight off, because I know his tells were neither here nor there, and I still do to this day. But it's a social skill, but it's how you manage it. I think if it's done without intent to hurt somebody, that's totally different to when somebody's lying to deceive and to pretend to be something they're not, or it's deceit that's the problem. It's not little lying per se. It's the deception that people have problems with, because it erodes trust.
In a friend, keep losing my voice. In a friend group years ago, there was one of the friends in the group was seeing another friend's partner, and the other friend was the friend whose partner it was confiding in us all, like speaking to us all as if to say, I think he's playing away, blah blah blah, these are the signs, this, that and the other, right? Now she was the most vocal out of all of us in terms of what you should do and blah blah blah, and it turned out to be her.
Yeah, and often you'll find that if somebody is lying, they will either be too convincing, they will go too far the other way to what they normally would. That wonderful show Would I Lie to You, which I don't watch all the time because I really haven't got the time. Occasionally when I see it, when you're trying to guess whether someone's lying or not, it's really interesting to watch the body language, particularly if they're actors, so they know how to act as if they are lying, and they know all these tricks. And it's quite an eye-opener, really. Too much detail is often a giveaway, like over-the-top detail, like say being loud, being too much, overdoing it is often a complete giveaway.
I think her first thing she said was, and obviously it's obvious now when you look back, but the first thing she said was, oh my God, are you like going to dump him? Or something like that. It was like one of the first things. Yeah, definitely. I think they did. I think when Doll did come out, he did go and live with her for a couple of weeks, but it didn't last.
A couple of weeks. That's that was never going to happen, was it? Yeah.
No.
But
No.
that's the thing, the hurt it causes all round, because you've got, you know, he's not being honest with himself. He's probably, often people lie out of an intention to try not to hurt somebody, but inevitably that person, the receiving end of it, your friend, is clearly the one who was probably more hurt than if it had they just had a discussion, and also would have felt deceived for that whole length of time and lost a good friend in the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's consequences.
It's just, it's an odd thing, isn't it?
It is.
I know people sometimes say, like, oh, I just like to protect people's feelings. You know what I mean? Is that okay, though? I don't personally think so, because I'd rather know the truth.
Yeah, they think they're protecting the other person. What they are doing usually is saving their own skin and trying to make sure they're not implicated in some way, shape or form. It usually comes from self-interest or fear about what the other person might do, that the other person might leave them, might divorce them, or what have you. And yes, it is dishonest. But, the intention isn't always to hurt. This is the problem. What happens is people will justify their behaviour anyway to make it okay.
Yeah.
Because that's what people do. If they really thought they were doing something dreadful, they'd probably be a lot more honest. But they end up building a whole barrage of reasons why they need to lie. And then it starts to get very elaborate.
And it gets complicated. And then lies always get found out. Serious lies, you know what I mean?
The serious ones that are ongoing and long running do always get found out, because inevitably there's an inconsistency somewhere in the story, and eventually the person starts to forget what they said right at the beginning. The whole thing, and that's usually how they get caught out. That's how, that's how police and courts work. They're looking for the inconsistencies in stories. Oh, so I got an itchy back.
Yeah. So I suppose that sort of leads into like lying that's illegal, like that leads to things that are illegal. You know what I mean? Is it lying to cover somebody? So, for instance, perverting the course of justice, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
Then stop someone being arrested or prosecuted, or the wrong person being arrested and prosecuted because of somebody's lie.
Self-preservation again, usually at the heart of it, or the protection of particularly a family member. People who would never normally lie will do anything to save their son or daughter from a jail sentence, or people do that. But in a way, it comes from a good place. It's trying to protect those you love. So the problem is there's a consequence. It's not a free thing. It has a knock-on effect.
I mean, how serious do you go? Are you protecting a murderer or a rapist or something like that? Because personally, don't think I could, even if it was my son.
Yeah, and often, of course, they genuinely believe that the person has not done it.
Yeah.
So this is part of the problem, is that
unless
if they knew, then it does change. Yeah, it does change a bit. But sometimes even so, they will, put someone else in jail who doesn't need to be there to protect their own. There's lots of programs, lots of series and movies and things that are based around that kind of thing.
I watched I think it was like a police show thing, and basically this guy rang up and he said, I want to report my son missing. And they said, okay, like, how old's your son? Blah, blah, blah. When did you last see him? Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it turns out this kid was 5 and he hadn't seen him for 18 months. and the woman was stopping him from seeing him, his ex,
Yeah.
and he'd gone down the route of he'd gone down the route of a solicitor and everything. And the solicitor, because the boy hadn't been seen, the solicitor advised him to go to the police.
Wow.
He was seeing him every weekend at her house for like for his first few years. And then, like I said, the last 18 months had stopped and he just seemed to have disappeared. So the solicitor, like I said, advised him to phone the police. The police took all the details. The police tried to get in touch with the woman, eventually got hold of her. She says, I don't know what you're talking about. We haven't got a child. He's given them photographs with him in and her. She still denies all knowledge of this child. Anyway, she had an older daughter, late teens, already, who was in her late teens. So they showed the pictures to her, and they goes, "Oh, that's like Bobby. He used to live next door to him. My mum used to babysit him."
Wow.
So it turned out that this woman, to get money from him, because he was paying maintenance to her, had been using somebody else's child.
Wow.
Yeah, she was babysitting every weekend, but the woman changed her shift, so she didn't need her to do it anymore. And yeah, it all came out, and he was devastated, the bloke and his family. And he wrote a letter to the boy's family saying, like, I just want you to know how much pleasure he gave, like, to me and my family, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's extraordinary. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there
I
was
mean,
one.
that's the extreme lying, and obviously something you can't keep up, and something that comes back to you in the longer term, which it did.
Precisely. Yeah, anything like that is going to have a paper trail, or yeah, it's going to be, if investigated, and that's the thing. If investigated, it will show. But the fact that they thought they could even get away with it, I find quite remarkable. But people don't always think logically,
Like when they did it first, she must have just kept getting away with it, and obviously getting the money was keeping her going, wasn't it?
Well, exactly, and people will do what they have to keep money going. It's extraordinary. As Jones just said, yeah, for some people, lying is a default setting, of course. Yeah, we all know someone that does that, and the crying wolf thing. Yeah, and that's the problem, is it erodes trust completely. So if someone is a habitual liar and nothing seems to be true, then even if they're telling the truth, no one's going to believe them. Yeah.
I know a few people, and I think we probably all do, who does that thing where they try to make their life better than it is.
Yeah.
So they lie a bit for that. It's not like major lying, but you know it's lying.
Yeah. Something doesn't quite ring true.
Yeah. I used to live there, or you know, my mum used to be friends with Paul McCartney, or you know what I mean? It'd be like random lies like that you can't prove, but you don't believe because it's always comes up.
Exactly, and people usually do it because they feel their life is so rubbish they have to have a better life to be more acceptable. Very sad, really, and huge insecurity for someone like that. And this is the one, which is what I was saying here. Stephen Stall saying, being in relationships, it's the fact that they're lying about it, rather than the fact that they've gone and done something wrong. It's the maintenance of deceit, because that erodes all your trust in somebody. And trust is one of the most important, fundamental things that we have, that you kind of hold on to when life's bad. So
it's also that thing as well, when you know someone's lying, they're swearing down on everything that they're not. You want to believe them because you love them, usually. You know what I mean? But then something else happens, and you're like, it doesn't add up. You know what I mean? And it really drives you insane.
Mm.
And they're like totally.
Yourself, you doubt yourself. You think, "Oh, did I think that?" Or have I made that up? Am I making too much out of something? Yeah. But intuition usually tells you that something is amiss, and that sort of suspicion then starts to erode at everything else. And then when you're finally proven right, there's no satisfaction in you because everything's just blown apart. Yeah. And exactly. You can't until you know what's gone on and have some kind of rationale for it. Yeah, it's horrible. And some people suffer that in relationships quite often because it then makes it harder and harder to trust somebody.
Yeah. I know that I've heard like a few people say, well, I think it was CPN or something that I spoke to, and they were like, sometimes you just don't get answers like that. You know what I mean? Like, because that's what we want, isn't it? We feel like we needed to be able to shut the door. When he said, sometimes you're never going to get those answers ever, and you have to be able to shut the door.
Yeah,
without them, type of thing.
One that people want is the why. Why did somebody do something?
Yeah.
Usually the person doesn't know themselves. They weren't thinking. That's the whole point. They were acting on instinct, lust, impulse, whatever. But there is no thinking involved. So they can't then say, well, it was because there isn't no because. And that's horrible because then the person who's had the dirty done on them has no idea what they go around thinking they've done something wrong or that. And it's not that at all. It's just it is freedom. Oh, hi, Fauna. Yeah.
Hi, Sylvia. Yeah, that's it, isn't it? It's that just needing that why, that answer to be able to move forward. But so it just, you're never going to get the answer you want. And even if, like you said, they come around and say, I don't know why, because, like you said, most of them don't know why.
No, you're usually dealing with people that don't think about things terribly deeply, which is why they act impulsively, which is why they end up in these messes. But yeah, trust is such a fundamental thing. And once it's been broken, it then can set up a whole difficulty with creating a relationship again, because you wrote yourself, you're vulnerable, you trust, and you can get really badly hurt time and time again. And people then start to go, well, I don't want that to happen. So I'm either going to treat people like I've been treated, which is, one of the responses that happens, or they shut themselves off from relationship and won't engage, both of which don't lead to a satisfactory life or a good result.
I've been friends with a few people in the past and then things have happened, and to the point that like we didn't speak, and then they have wanted to sort of kept trying to speak to me all the time. Every so often I get a message, and then this one day I decided to respond to the message. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they instantly went back to how it used to be. Like as soon as like I responded, it was like, but to me, the relationship was still gone. I'd just let it go on my part. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of what I was doing. Like, or at least that's what I feel like I did. That I let it go, but it was never the same, and never will be the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah, once trust is gone, you can't.
Yeah,
it's more difficult to rebuild.
I would acknowledge them or whatever, but I wasn't friends.
Because you don't want to get hurt again. That's the thing. You don't want that to happen. I had a dear friend that, something along that ilk happened, and we'd been on a few occasions where it got a bit dicey, and I'd been the one to sort of make the move and apologise, and I just kind of got to the point where I don't want to keep doing this because it hurts. It hurts me. It hurts my family. And so I stopped, and even to this day I do still feel bad in some way about it, and I still care for that person, but I just can't get involved with them because
I think sometimes you just can't be in some people's lives because of the effect that they have on you, and that isn't that is a need that you have to do for yourself, which I understand the guilt feeling because I've done that as well. I had a sort of feeling of guilt because of it, but you sometimes just have to do what you need to do for your own mental health.
Yeah, you do have to step away, and if it's repeatedly the same issue is coming up, it's just no, stop. It's not good.
Yeah.
This is an interesting point. I think a lot of us have kind of gone into becoming somebody we don't like very much because of the experiences we've had, and it's that feeling that it can change your personality in some way, to make you mistrustful and cynical and all of these things, which is the last thing anyone wants to be. You need a level of judgment call where you can go, hang on, this is slightly familiar, let's not go there because I think I recognise this as a pattern, to them feeling that you can't open up with anyone. And it's really, really hard. It's probably one of the toughest things we do in life is trying to have a relationship where it's open and honest, and where you haven't got any of this undergoing stuff on it.
Yeah, it is really hard to get out of that. I think the last sort of person I was close to, I remember he would do one thing and see another.
Oh,
and
tough.
you know what I mean? And that used to bug the life out of me. And eventually I got to the point where I just had to that's it, I'm done. I needed to walk away from my own sanity type of thing.
It's too confusing, isn't it? You're thinking, did he say that? And the energy it takes to try and
work it out. And I just thought, do you know what? I don't want something this complicated. You know what I mean?
It shouldn't be that hard to work, should it? Relationship requires effort on both parts, but if it's hard work, it's not the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it just got to the point where I just said, no, it's just not working.
Yeah. And it's sad to think
it was all my fault, of course.
Oh, that's another telltale thing, isn't it? If everything's your fault, it's like, well, that's impossible.
Yeah, it was all my fault. And I just was like, if that's the way you want it, if that helps you to move on, fine. Blame me.
Yeah. You go ahead and believe that. I actually don't.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a hard one. It's a hard one because you've got the tiny little ones. Personally, think that if you are a real friend to someone, you tell them the truth. If someone asked your opinion, and I would want my friends to do the same. If I put an item of clothing on and it didn't look right on me, I'd want them to say it didn't look right.
Yeah. I think a level of honesty, again, it's about trust. You're trusting someone to be honest, or at least because, like you say, you've got half a dozen other people and they'll just say, yeah, that looks great. And it's like, yeah, all right. You're just being polite. You know when someone's just being polite. I mean, I always try, always have this thing of being fairly honest. I'm the kind of person that will go up to someone and say, you do know your label's sticking out the front, don't you? Sticking out the back. Because I'd rather somebody told me in that position and let me get on with it. So sometimes people look at you like, it's like, I just thought you'd like to know.
I remember speaking to my daughter and I felt a bit bad at the time because she wanted a denim mini skirt. And they were in fashion at the time. And I think she was 12 or 13 at the time. Mid-thigh length denim skirt it was. But like her mother, she's all thighs and bum. And it just come up at the back way too much,
it wasn't doing him any favors.
No, so I had to explain it to her, and I felt really bad. And she sometimes still brings it up. That time when you said my bum was too fat. No, that's not how I put it,
guys. Exactly, and that's the thing. It's always an opinion. I'll always preface it with, okay, that my default one that people start to recognise about if I say something's interesting, that normally means I'm like, wouldn't be the best thing. It's quite an interesting look.
Yeah,
you might want to rethink.
I mean, there's also the thing is well, I don't like the pattern or the print or whatever, and I've had that with a friend. She showed us a top once, and it was this green paisley top, and then I was like, oh, I didn't like that. But she put it on and she really suited it. And I says, it does look good on you, because she was like
Yeah.
a redhead and it looked nice with the green, and she just suited it, and the shape was nice on her. And I says to her, like, it looks really nice. I'm not that keen on that print personally, but that's personally. If you love the print, then the shape is working for you. You know what I mean? So it's great.
Absolutely. I always say it's not necessarily something I would wear, but then there's lots of things I can't wear that other people can. But yes, if something does lift somebody's spirit, I think you can see it in their face. If they put something on, they feel amazing. Even if it isn't their best shape, there's no way I'm going to bring them down off that. It's like, oh, fabulous. That makes you look, I can see you really happy in that. That's brilliant. And that's what I will say.
Yeah.
But I will also say to somebody, if I think they're looking particularly good in something, I'm quite happy to do it, with friends and acquaintances. Oh, that looks really good on you. Like that.
It got to the point where, like, Laura's friends would message me in outfits they'd bought to ask my opinion, because they knew that I would be honest. You know what I mean? But not being mean, if you know what I mean.
Yes, exactly. You would tread the line.
Yeah, I'm not going to just say something looks good if I don't think it looks good.
Exactly. Those kind of things. There are ways of saying things without hurting someone's feelings that mean you can be honest.
Even people who have close friendships, I think they struggle to tell the truth, like that, even if it, because they feel like they're hurting someone's feeling, where to me it's not. And I think if you take it in that way, and maybe it is that some people do take it in that way, they take it as like a knock against them, but it's not. It's just a case of we're all different shapes and sizes, and we all suit some things better than others. And you can wear one top and it can make you look slimmer and whatever. You can put another top on, and the way it's shaped, the way it's cut, can just chop you in half, can't it? And it just
exactly. I can be very honest with myself. I found an amazing dress the other day, and I thought, wow, that's amazing. But I kind of had a feeling it probably wouldn't suit me. And I put it on. It's like, yeah, I was right. It makes me like a tube of toothpaste. That doesn't work. It's got no waist. It just. And I'm like, oh, bugger, because I loved it. It had a big skull on the front and everything. I'm like, that would suit. And I could think of loads of people that would suit, but just not me. So it's like, oh, well, I can live with that. I'll find something else. Hello, Nick and Andrew, by the way.
Hi, Nick and Andrew.
They both popped in. What are we chatting about today? Lies, little lies, and big uns.
Yes, we're talking about the art of lying.
Yes. Which ones are all right and which ones are definitely dodgy and to be avoided, and the consequences that they can have. Your outfit was different. Oh, Land Army girl. I love that look on people. I look appalling and it doesn't work on me at all. I love
it. With Sylvia, she does suit. She suits her look, which is.
She's found her style.
Yes. And I don't think I have. I like what I like, but I wouldn't be able to sort of put a name to it, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's always tricky. I think you get things that you like to wear for different reasons. You get things because they have a nice texture, a nice colour, a nice shape. And if something does all three of those, then it's bingo, but that's a rare thing, isn't it?
Like if I put on what Sylvia was wearing, I just would not look right. You know what I mean?
I haven't got the right shape. I just haven't got the curves and where they're needed to make that look really work.
She looks cool. Same as I like Lex's style. She always looks cool. But I think if I wore something like that, I just wouldn't. I just would not. Just not at all look right.
Yeah, Lex is amazing, and she was one of the perfect people. When I found this dress, I was thinking, I know Lex would look brilliant in that. But it's just one of those things. You just kind of, it takes a while and a certain number of years to find what you like, not to care about other people's opinions, but to find what you think makes you look the way you want to look. And it's always work in progress, I feel.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Nick says, sometimes being economical with the truth is required. And then straight back, slam dunk return, we've got Andrea with, unless it's to me, Mr. Nick. I always know when you're lying. I know you too well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the problem with partnerships. You kind of know. when someone's just being a bit polite. And sometimes it just gets to the stage where you don't ask. It's safer not to ask. The granny cardigans. Yeah, I've heard
I
that
can't remember which comedian it is, but one of the comedians, and they say when you go anywhere with your wife and something happened, so it could be a legit thing that's happened, but you exaggerate it to your friends to make it look cooler than it was. So I can't remember which comedian said it now, but it was like, so you're telling your friends and like, yeah, there was this huge explosion and blah 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 blah, and your friends are all like, oh wow, and then your wife comes along, no, there wasn't. It was just like a little firecracker, you know what I mean, and sort of thingies it down, and like so your lies are brought out in that sense.
But sometimes storytelling to entertain people, that's I mean, I've got a friend who's incredibly good at that and can make an absolute drama out of anything, and it's fabulous and it's funny and it's brilliant. But yes, if you truly believe every word of it and it becomes gospel, then yes, you've got a problem.
What about like lying to children, like sort of the bogeyman and Santa Claus, even really, and stuff like that?
Yeah, I must admit, I have not lied as far as I can possibly remember to my child, because I never liked that. I always knew when people were lying to me as a kid, so I just never wanted. It felt patronising, so I never wanted to do it to anyone else.
So even with like Santa Claus, like
Santa Claus was a difficult one. I did take him to Santa's grotto when he was about 3.5, 4, but by the time he was 4, he knew there was no Santa Claus. He'd worked it out himself. He didn't need me to tell him. So when he asked me in quite a surefire way, oh, it's Dad that comes in the room, isn't it? I'm like, yeah, but don't let on. Let him think it's him give him a couple more years of being Santa, like he was doing us a favour. But no, I certainly wouldn't burst someone's belief bubble. I wouldn't do that. But if I'm asked an honest question straight up, I will give an honest answer back. People don't like the answer sometimes. And yes, this is something that happens to me on a regular basis. I've been told I was too honest, but it's like, I don't know. I'm not usually nasty about it. I mean, I wouldn't be, because why would I be? But if somebody genuinely asks my opinion, they'll get an answer.
Yeah.
And they might not like the answer. And I've actually said to people, you're asking me that question, but you may not like the answer. And then carried on.
Yeah. Well, I always remember my mum says to me that Santa, the story of Santa is real, so therefore Santa is real. Do you know what I mean? Like in that sense. And I remember when Laura was 8, David knew at this point, and she came in the kitchen and I was washing the dishes, and she said to me, Mom, if I ask you a question, will you tell us the truth? And I was like, yeah. Do you know that like sort of thing? And she goes, and it was about 3 weeks before Christmas at the time. And she said, is Santa real? Because some people at my school saying he's not real, and I know he's real because I've seen him, and I know he is. So I think they're just lying, and stuff like that. And so she sort of proceeded to say all this stuff I didn't actually speak at the time, and I went, well, I think you just answered your own question. And then she went, yeah, and she went off happily, and I thought to myself, this is definitely
well held.
Yeah, well held. Yeah.
You kept your powder dry there. Yeah, and that's the thing, is let them work it through, and then
because to me that whole time was like a magic thing, like, and that's the way I looked at it. And like, as I said, my mum always said the story of Saint Nicholas obviously was the truth.
Yeah, I think it's lovely, and it just depends on the kind of kid you have and the way their mind works. And mine was very much like me and worked it out horrifically early. Somehow
but that was like the last year, But I used to hate it when I'd see parents and their children in Woolies, and they'd like be 4 or 5, and they'd be like, right, pick what you want, but remember it's going away.
Oh no, that's horrible. Yeah,
So
no.
would tell them to choose 2 or 3 presents or whatever, and then tell them what was going away. And
Oh no, that's
yeah,
weird.
exactly.
Why would you
I
do that?
think
You might
that's
ask them what they would like, but you kind of, because you need some surprises. The kids are really hard to surprise as they get a bit older. Oh, so we got, there's no Santa. Oh dear, I think we've just done a bad turn there. That's an interesting one. That, yeah, I think that probably is an okay lie up to a point, isn't it? I mean, to try and keep the magic going. This is interesting from Sylvia here. Now, yes, your style. Oh, I love your bee, actually. I can see that properly now. Lovely. And your style's a bit different. Well, I can say the same. And I like that idea of toning it down, because why would you?
I think just be even brighter. That's neat.
Yeah, I mean, it's personal choice, and it depends on the friends and stuff. Yes, yeah. But it's an interesting compromise, and it's one way of working with it. So yeah, I mean, I used to tone things down a bit, and I just don't bother now. I'm all out there, but that's probably because I'm old. Oh dear.
I used to think, like, if I tried to be cool, like that, you know what I mean? Like in because I do like things that are not what you would call the norm, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But to be able to style it on myself just wouldn't work. Like, it works for Sylvia, it works for Lex, works for loads of other people. But for me, I'd just look like I'd ran through the clothes part of a charity shop really quick. That's what I'd look like. Do you know what I mean? It just wouldn't work.
It's much harder I think, to sort of decide what suits yourself than it is other people. I've always found it very easy to pick outfits for other people and to style them up. There's no problem. But for years I struggled with it, because I kind of knew what I wanted, how I wanted it to be, but kind of like hung off it, because I thought, oh, is it right? Or, is it going to work? Is it too much? And then when I finally just went for it, I've not looked back, really.
I think the other thing is that the kind of, do I look fat in this, or type of question. Well, if you're fat, then yes.
Yes, but why not be glorious in whatever size you are, and just absolutely, nail it, just completely.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't bother me. Do you know what I mean? I know what I am, type of thing. But I know that some people, I think things can make someone look bigger. I think things can make, depending on the culture. Yeah, it can make someone look bigger, a lot bigger than they are. And I think that's the thing that you were saying, when you think having like loads and loads of extra material to cover up isn't actually doing anything for people.
Yeah, but people tend to do that, because I mean, the Logan look thing is a case in point. I mean, I just look like a bag lady if I'm in Logan look, because it all just hangs and it's all ugh.
Yeah.
But some people look glorious in it, and other people just look shapeless in it. It's very hard to pin down. It's just a personal thing. I think the more I love I can't remember what it's called now. There's a style. There's a thing of these much older people who are on Facebook, and they're just incredibly stylish. And it's like, yeah, whatever, why not?
Yeah.
And style has no age barriers, as Stephen's just said there. I don't think I am younger than you, Sylvia, but we'll brush briefly over that. And Nick had a giant squid in his head at the weekend. Yes, apparently you did. And who cares? It's fun. And you were way past.
You were at a festival, though, Nick. I mean, it weren't like you were going around Asda. Like, if you'd have been going around Asda, maybe people would have looked a bit more. But
I think they might, but not. Again, so what? What are they going to do about it?
Yeah.
Oh, never feel as big in anything as when I'm naked. Well, yes, but being naked is quite nice, just not having encumbrances. But yes, again, not necessarily out at Tesco's or Aldi's or.
Yeah, you might get arrested.
Although there's a few people, especially in the hot weather, who are wearing remarkably little fabric. in there. And then, of course, as soon as you're going out, it's bloody freezing because all the chillers are going, aren't they? And you're just like, oh God,
Yeah.
oh God, oh God.
I double Andrea's dare to Nick. She says, I dare you to wear it to Asda. Well, I double that dare.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And this I think nails it in the sense of, rather than working on truth telling, we'd be better off learning not to care. Yeah. And I do think that is something that comes more with maturity, or at least years. I do think that comes in more. But yeah, it's a good thing, isn't it, to not care quite so much about what everybody else thinks. And that's a real hard one.
I think probably the biggest lie we see every day is when we bump into people and we go, hiya, and then you go, you all right? Yeah, you? Yeah, fine.
Yeah, fine.
Fine. That's usually the biggest one, isn't it? When
That's the
really
biggest lie.
yeah.
I think someone told me that FINE stands for, hang on, let me get this right. So fucked up and in need emotionally. That's what it stands for. Because everyone just says it, oh, I'm fine. Even if literally their legs hanging off and, they're
because you don't end up going, oh yeah, well, I'm overdrawn on the bank and I need to move house, and you know what I mean? You don't do that, do you? You just go, yeah, fine.
Yeah, people usually don't want to know exactly how you are. It's a social, let's kind of connect and then move off. Feelings inside not expressed. That's another one. Yeah, exactly. There you go. Nick and Andrew both got that one nailed.
From the same wavelength there.
And not caring is one of the only advantages of getting older. Yes, this is true. There's got to be some.
Yeah, I definitely care less, I think. You know what I mean? Now, I don't care what people think.
Yeah, I think it's that sort of confidence thing, isn't it? That people tend to get more confident as they get older. Not necessarily, but they learn to cope and deal with life and adapt. I think a bit more. Yeah, there's that not wanting to hurt people again, not wanting to load. I mean, I have a very, very dear friend, and I wish I talked to her more often because she's not able to get out and about very much. She's fairly housebound, etc. And I wish I could speak to her more because we have good conversations. We're great friends, and whenever we do talk on the phone, it's like we've never been apart. But every time it's like, well, I didn't want to ring you because I didn't want to offload all my crap onto you. And then she does so, and then she feels better. And like, we're friends.
Yeah.
Who else are you going to unload off onto? I don't mind. If I'd minded, we wouldn't still be friends after 15 years. It's like,
yeah.
But still there's that, I don't want to offload on you. You think it must be bad if you're thinking that to yourself. I can't offload.
Yeah.
Like, I'm bomb-proof, and there's very little that shocks me. I've heard it all. So, yeah. So, yeah, that is one of the most common lies is just kind of glossing over things and pretending we're fine because we need to be fine. It's the only way we can get through our day.
Yeah.
The important thing is for there to be some people in your life that you can say, I'm not fine. You can't do it with everybody. That's life. But yeah, everybody needs some people they can do that with. Most definitely. Very important. I think sometimes people actually end up sort of lying to themselves. There's that internal conversation that goes on about, I should be this, or, I want my life to be that. And sort of almost kind of lying to yourself that you're fine when you're not actually, when there's a small voice inside of you going, actually, I'm not fine. Can you stop listening to me for a minute? I'm going to make you ill. I'm going to shout. And I think that's probably being able to trust.
You kind of drown that one out, don't you?
Yeah.
Until it gets too loud that you can't.
Yeah. This is true. People don't always want a solution. And listening is the most important part. Yeah, absolutely. Letting somebody just say what they're going to say and let them.
I think it's because, like, in a way to help, we feel like giving them a solution is a help.
Yeah.
When, like you said, on like Stephen saying, you don't want help, you just want someone to listen. You know the answer, really.
People already know their own answers. They know what they
Mhm.
would like to be able to do, what they think they can do, what they might do. And really, you're a sounding board. You're not actually there to tell them what to do. There are certain instances where someone is so clearly telling you what they want to do but can't see it themselves. That's slightly different. Then you're trying to get them around to where they might see it. But yeah, it really is listening that's the key thing. Oh yeah, Nans are good for that, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, my mum was like that before the dementia. She always was able to make us see things in a different way.
Yeah, because they can stand back from it and kind of almost like reframe what you said and pop it back to you, so that you're thinking, oh, was that
And
what?
she was really very calming as well, which always helps.
Of course, because you're emotionally caught up in something. Someone who's sitting there with you isn't so much. They're just thinking, oh, that's an interesting set of situations. And often people will come out with, and certainly my work as a therapist, people often come out with a whole raft of things that seem unconnected, but then a certain word or a phrase or something will be the common thread.
Yeah.
And it's drawing the person's attention to that common thread that runs through it that suddenly makes them go, ah. And then they work out for themselves what they want to do. Yeah. And yeah, for people to know that sometimes we struggle, we're all sort of strong adults who basically crack on with it on a day-to-day basis. But there are days when you're not as strong as you want. You're not always going to be that strong person, and you don't have to be, not all the time.
Yeah, and to those close to you, you look at other people's lives and you think, I don't know how they get through the day to day, because and then other people look at your life and think, I don't know how they're getting through the day to day. Do you know what I mean? But
exactly, you do, because it's what you know, and you've got
what
your
you have to
strategies. Yeah, you kind of have to.
My nana used to say, if we all toss our problems up in the air at the same time, we'd be pleased to catch our own.
Yeah,
that's true. And sometimes you think, oh, it's the worst circumstances ever, but if you know those circumstances, you're in a boat that you know where the holes are, type of thing.
Exactly. There is always something that you can do. There are many things you can't do anything about, but the things that you can do something about, they're the ones to focus on, because that's where people's sense of empowerment comes from. When people feel overwhelmed or out of control, or that's when it can start to fall apart, because then that's what people are seeing. Then they will then lose their coping strategies. Yeah, and being overwhelmed is one of them. So yeah. And sometimes telling lies about how your life is for that moment in time that person's way of coping, at least temporarily, or of taking the attention off themselves, or of making out everything's absolutely fine.
I suppose if you look at other people's highlights online and things, you can get caught up in this sort of thing of like, everyone's life looks amazing and yours doesn't. And so therefore, I guess that's why people do that sort of little bit of lie type thing to make their life seem a bit better.
Yeah, they do it to make themselves more likable, to make themselves more popular, to have to put out there that, I mean, goodness me, I mean, the world's full of it now, what with a lot of stuff content that people are putting out there, and it's natural that you want to present your best self, or your that your edited highlights, if you like, a kind of manufactured version. But I mean, I don't tend to put a lot of content out there. I haven't got time. I really haven't. But yeah, and also, what you're looking for? Are you looking for somebody to envy your life? Are you looking to just sort of lie even more because the monster keeps growing? The psychology of it is remarkable. It's difficult. And then quite often you'll see these people who suddenly hear they've kind of crashed and burned and something's happened. And then they'll come on with some major, big, awful thing that's happened in their life. Equally dramatic, but a real flip round.
But they can then get caught up in that side of it, in the negative. So then they can become like people who's just like, all they speak about is the negative, and the negative's always like very extreme.
Yeah, and you can't sustain that anyway, and you will lose. People
Yeah.
will stop watching if it's not. People usually watch YouTubes for either education or entertainment. Usually, it's one or the other, and if it's both, then you're lucky. Or it's because there's someone they know anyway, and they enjoy, their company and stuff. I mean, I don't put much content out these days. I suddenly realise it's been a while, and I've literally got about 4 or 5 bags, IKEA bags, full of stuff that I bought on the weekend. I think I must try. I'd like to try sometime before I start listing it all, which is going to be fairly soon, to actually kind of do it as a haul, because I just do little live hauls because it's quite nice to share and say, oh, I found this. But I don't need to do it. I make no money off YouTube. It's purely hobby, and I'm so glad it is, because I haven't got the time to indulge in it. I'd be lying if I said I did.
Yeah, I mean, I do vlogs now and then. So obviously, let you in to people, daily life type of thing. Which mine's usually waiting for carers and whatnot. But
that's life, isn't it? It's real.
Real's my everyday.
Yeah, I think it gives people an insight into different lifestyles, different ways. Like I said,
a lot of people have said to me that they didn't realise this or they didn't realise that, like with regards to life in a wheelchair, essentially. Because, and to be honest, neither did I beforehand. I just assumed, oh, you just can't walk. That's the only bit of it. You know what I mean? But then that involves like not being able to go to the toilet yourself, not being able to leave the house when you want, not being able to turn your own lights out or do loads of other things. You know what I mean? But then all them bits you don't really think of. You know what I mean? So, but yeah.
And I do think, the fact that you do the vlogs and you're very honest about everything has actually been quite an eye opener. It certainly opened my eyes to something I knew very little about. It's like, wow, that really is a massive change in how you can live your life. So I think people have learned from it and appreciate, that you do put it out there, because otherwise, how do we know? How can we be helpful, understanding, try and get things changed, so that everybody has access to stuff, and it isn't just a case of being in a chair with wheels. As you say, it's a lot more complicated.
Yeah. I'm not Chris. I'm not. I am, however, on Saturday, I think. So I'm sure it's the last Saturday. It is the last Saturday in the month, so I will be on Saturday.
Oh, and what are you doing on the last Saturday of the month? Is that a
it's
quiz?
Just usually a chat, and sometimes it's a quiz, sometimes it's just a chat, sometimes whatever. So I'll just do that. I'll probably talk about the charity thing.
Yes, Nick did mention that briefly. So, more information. So that is going to be good. Well, we're nearly coming up. Well, we're coming up to the hour. Thank you, everybody, for being with us, for joining in. It's been an interesting one. It's a strange little subject, and I wasn't sure we'd have enough to carry us through, but we did. A rich theme that we mined, I think, there. So, yeah, interesting one to think about, isn't it? And still said there's YouTube that made you realise that sharing things isn't necessarily an invitation for comment and advice. This is so true. Yeah, it's quite a thing when you realise that. Because we all like to help, but sometimes
the amount of people who like to tell you you're wrong. In comments.
With comments, there's a few people who've had some very well-intentioned but not necessarily helpful comments on their channels, and I really think that's difficult. And the comment section will be empty if nobody said anything. Yes, please comment. It's always a good thing. So thank you everyone for joining us. We'll say farewell. I will press the right buttons, and we shall see you all next week. Any suggestions for topics, gladly welcome. Stick them in the comments, and we'll see where we go next week. It's on Lainie's channel next week. The girls really do cry. So tutty bye now.
Bye. Bye.